What over the last few years have you liked, and what are you looking forward to?
Um, I like almost everything, honestly. Like and that's a very broad statement, but what I mean by that is almost anything that you end up buying is it's gonna serve you in one way or another. It's just a matter of how much time you're willing to put into the instrument to learn it. If it is something that's a little odd, not everything sounds like butter. You know, a lot of the stuff you hear on the radio or in film and TV or any kind of produced work, a lot of times people spend a lot of time cultivating sounds and designing and composing, and there's a lot of effort that goes into that. So it's not like I turn on my Moog One and I sound amazing. Now you got to spend some time working with the instruments. So in terms of what I have that I really like, I mean, I like everything I have in here. That's why it's here. If I didn't like it, I wouldn't have it. So, but what I would definitely like to see is companies like Roland, like we were talking about. Let's kind of let's give the people what they want, so to speak. There's a lot of people. I'm not the only one, I'm sure, but I know at the same time we're probably a very niche type part of the market. But we would really like to see some authentic analog recreations of some of their classics. That's why companies like Behringer, when they come out with these clones or announcements of clones, people freak out because it's impossible to get one unless you are willing to take the risk of buying something that's very expensive, that's 40 plus years old or whatever. So I would love to see more companies do that type of thing. And a lot of them have like sequential as one. Dave Smith, I recall him saying he would never do a reissue of the Prophet 5, and lo and behold, he did. Yeah. And thank goodness, thank you, Dave Smith. That I had not ever bought a Dave Smith instrument or a sequential instrument until that, and I didn't even know what I was missing. But had he not done that, I don't know that. Maybe I would have eventually, but it was a conversation that I've had before where people ask me, why don't you have any Dave Smith stuff? And it's like, well, I'd like the Prophet 08 or something, but it's kind of like, there's always something I want more until the Prophet 5. I ended up getting a Prophet 10, but at the same time, I wouldn't have even been interested necessarily like that. Like I was very enthusiastic because that's one of the most classic of the classics. You know what I mean? So yeah, I'd love to see more of that. And in the meantime, anything else that comes out, it's hard to pick at some point because there's so much now. So I want to say the last synth that I picked up, well, it would have been the Prophet 10, but prior to that, maybe the Kyra, or no, I did pick up a Hydrasynth, but I haven't used it very much. So, but there's just so much to pick from now, which is a good thing because having so much choice is good, I think. The hard part is figuring out what should you get, or for what your goals are, what you're trying to do. That's where it can get a little hairy. And for me, it took me a long time to kind of figure out what type of stuff I liked in terms of synths. And that only happened because I would buy stuff and I would use it. And then if I didn't like it, I would sell it, or if sometimes I ran out of money and had to sell it. But those I bought again, like the little fatties here. I bought and sold those multiple times going through my 20s because I needed the money, but I always, as soon as I could, I bought another one. So yeah, I guess, I don't know if does that answer the question?
It does. But I do want to elaborate on a couple synths, if that's all right.
Sure.
I'm living vicariously through you, so.
Sure.
The Waldorf Quantum.
Yes.
What can you tell me about that? When I see that synth, I think that is a very forward-thinking digital that I would like to see every company have. I would love to see Korg, for example, take their VPN, their FM, their take on like wavetable and put it into one big digital synth. I'd love to see Roland do that. I'd love to see Sequential come out with a really wicked digital synth. I think digital is the future. There'll always be a place for analog, but you don't see as many as like the Hydrasynth and the Quantum. What can you tell me about those synths?
So the quantum is, I agree with you. It's very forward thinking in terms of what the possibilities within that compared to, a standard analog synth is. It's not even comparable. Like the digital is going to win every time. You can get so creative because you can do things like sample into it, really mangle it using the granular functionality within the synth. They added the FM capabilities to it, which when I got this, it didn't have that yet. But that's one of the nice things these companies do is they will continuously improve the operating systems on these synths and add more features over time. And hopefully they don't ship with too many bugs, but if they do, hopefully they fix those. It doesn't always happen, but but yeah, I'd say the Quantum is one of the most innovative synths I think that's in here in terms of what you're. I mean, it's hard to even say because I don't even know everything it can do. It's so. But I agree with you. The space for digital instruments is very, very interesting and limitless, really, because of the digital realm. The things you can do in digital, you just can't do in analog. But what analog does, it does it very well. So until we end up hitting a point, and I think we will get there at some point where the digital stuff can sound just as good as an analog tour. And we might even be at that point to a certain extent. Like I bet you if somebody played, System 8 with the Jupiter 8 plugin and a real Jupiter 8, and you didn't know the difference and you're doing the Pepsi challenge kind of thing, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference anyway, I think at this point. But there's certain things with the way the high end frequencies kind of sound. I don't know how to explain it. Like sometimes though, there's stuff that'll give it away that it's digital when it's emulating analog. But I think digital is best as when it's doing digital things and it's not necessarily trying to do analog things. That's where I think digital, like FM, like we were talking about, with the right interface is amazing. You can do some of the coolest sounds I think I've ever heard come from FM. So, but no one could do it in the 80s because the DX7 is extremely difficult to get into. So, yeah. So the Quantum's really great. Hydrasynth, I have not dug into that one yet. Unfortunately for the Hydrasynth, around the time I got that, the ARP 2600 reissue arrived, and then shortly after that, I bought the Prophet 10. So, yeah, I've been playing with those. So, I will get into the Hydrasynth though, and the designer of that, he's the same guy that did the Matrix Brute.
Really?
Yes.
Oh.
He used to work for Arturia, as far as I understand. So
nice.
He knows how to design synths, and the Hydrasynth is one of the has for the limitations of what's on the control surface. They made really great design choices for that interface. And before I bought one, I demoed one at KnobCon, which is a synthesizer convention that happens in Chicago every year, except last year it didn't happen. But and I really, really liked it. So I think that I don't know. I'll have to reserve more judgment on that until I can really play with it and go through its manual and things. But from what I had played initially, yeah, it really caught the synth market by storm. And in some ways, it kind of ruined the Kyra, because the Kyra came out, people seemed to be pretty excited for that. Almost like an updated version of the Axis Virus. And then this Hydrasynth comes out that does all this crazy wavetable stuff and using mutators to like morph between the waveforms, and it made the Kyra look like it was from the 90s or something, But the Kyra has its own, like, yes, it doesn't, it's, they're different things. But the sad thing is the Kyra is probably the best sounding synthesizer I own. Fidelity wise is amazing. Wow, really? Yes. And it's something that you can't really translate something like that over a video on YouTube. You really got to listen to one. And one of the detractors for that synth is that a lot of the presets sound very similar. So you really need to get in and work and play with it and design some sounds. So I will stand by that's the best sounding synth that I own at the moment.